Can you tell us and our audience, what does that mean? What does it mean to have thick boundaries or thin boundaries?
Yeah, and I'll just mention Ernest Hartman was a psychiatrist and dream researcher
Mm.
um, in Wellesley, Massachusetts, near Harvard and MIT and those organizations. He worked for Tufts University, a very, very good school, and uh, really is a pioneer in many ways in understanding personality. And the theory he developed was called boundaries, thick and thin boundaries. He began by studying people that had nightmares. He's really, first and foremost, a dream researcher, and he was doing research on nightmares and nightmare sufferers. And what he realized was that the folks who reported nightmares were very, very different than other people that he was studying, who had very pedestrian dreams, kind of black and white. They had trouble even remembering their dreams. They didn't seem to be meaningful or at all. And that was in stark contrast to the people whose dreams woke them up in the middle of the night and they couldn't shake the imagery that was, intruding. And so he developed the concept of thick and thin boundaries. The idea is simply that people with thin boundaries have greater access to memories, to dreams, to ruminations. They are faster to react to virtually all stimuli in everyday life.
Does that mean they're more sensitive as?
They are. They are sensitive, open, vulnerable. Those are the three key adjectives that he used. And he contrasted that with thick boundary people who are slower to react, who are more, I think stolid is a good word, who are sort of impassive or seemingly impassive, and may not really be able to even tell you what it is they're feeling at a given moment. The extreme example of someone on the thick boundary side of things is alexithymia. Alexithymia is a term, I gather you know exactly what that means. It's someone who doesn't have the words to identify what they're feeling. They can't really tell you without prompting what it is that they're feeling. It doesn't mean that they're not feeling anything. It's just not
Yes, that was
that
a
accessible.
question. So it's not that people with thick boundaries, or actually in common language, more thick-skinned.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't feel, but they don't have the language for it, or they don't have the access.
Well, the original term for it, alexithymia, is really intended to explain. I think the original researchers said they don't have the words to express it. They don't have the vocabulary to express what they're feeling. It's become more of a question as to whether they don't have the vocabulary or they don't really have biologically the quick access to feelings. But all the physiological indicators, skin conductance and everything else, indicates, pulse rate, things like that, indicate that they are feeling things. It's under the surface and they can't quite put their finger on it. So it's thick skin in the sense of how they come across to other people, but thick skin even internally.
Yeah. Perhaps I have a quote here from Dr. Hartman's directly. Perhaps I can read it out now for our audience to get a better sense of what it means to have thick or thin boundaries. He said, "There are people who strike us as very solid and well organized. They keep everything in its place. They are well defended. They seem rigid, even armored. We sometimes speak of them as thick-skinned. Such people, in my view, have very thick boundaries. At the other extreme are people who are especially sensitive, open, or vulnerable, like you said. In their minds, things are relatively fluid. Such people have particularly thin boundaries." It's since you have been at this and writing about this for some years now, have you expanded your own definition on thick or thin according to your own observations? What other interesting facts, observations, or trends might you have spotted?
Well, I've taken it in a couple of directions, and